empathic as a judge and as a human, actually. But before we start, I want to ask you guys something. Is it Do you guys feel more comfortable if I talk faster like this, or is it better if I talk like this? Like uh, the pace? Do you guys prefer it faster, or do you guys prefer it like a slower tone? You can type it in the chat if you want to.
I think they're good with how you're speaking right now, right? All good with the pace and the tone.
Okay, okay. So I'll be talking like this, preferably. Sometimes when we present something, we tend to go a little bit too faster. Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Okay, before we start, I'm going to I'm going to tell you guys a bit about myself. There we go. My name is Ryan. I'm from Indonesia. I'm still single. If you guys interested, you can slide me a DM, or if you know someone. I've been playing Magic since 2018. I became a judge in 2019. I major in psychology, but no, I have not finished my paper. If you watch my presentation last year, I said the same thing. My favorite MTG color is Grixis. My favorite EDH deck is Gonti, Lord of Steal Your Stuff and Take Home Your Ragathon, to complete my modern deck. But times I have succeeded in taking home a Ragathon is 0. Yeah, but then third time's the charm, right? Okay, before we uh, before we start, I'm going to do a disclaimer here. I'm not talking about empathy as someone who's an expert in empathy. I'm not the most empathic person. I'm not someone who's supposed to be a role model for being empathic, but I'm just someone who felt the impact on how much being an empathic person would help me in judging. And also, another thing that I want to disclaim is that I'm not a native English speaker. So if you hear me stutter, if you hear me pause, like or trying to think of a word, please excuse me. So about the presentation, important things to note is when I ask you for your opinion on things, please type your answer in chat so I can see them, and also please be active. It's it's great to be active. And if you have any question, please write it down and save it until the end of the presentation. Okay, right then, goodbye. Okay, so we'll be moving on. Well, okay, today we'll be discussing about empathy. There's five, and what I'm going to discuss is the 5W and 1H of empathy. What is empathy? Why is empathy? Who is empathy? When is empathy? Where is empathy? And how is empathy? What is empathy would cover what is empathy, the description, the meaning of empathy, why is empathy is why is empathy important? Why do we choose empathy? Or who is empathy? Is the target for our empathy? Who are the targets for empathy? When is empathy? Where is empathy? Is when and where is empathy appropriate? And how is empathy is how do you be an empathic person? How do you be empathy? That's what we're going to share, right? That's what I'm going to share right now. Okay, so what is empathy? Empathy is understanding a person from from their frame of reference rather than one's own, and does not of itself entail motivation to be of assistance. Now, so the key point in empathy is understanding their frame of reference. You have to understand what they want, what they need, what they feel, what they might think of something. So when we're talking about empathy, there are things that are synonymous to empathy. Can you guys tell me like what are they? What do you think they are? Sometimes when we talk about empathy, we talk about these other things too. Oh no, no, it's not about. Oh, okay, okay, I see the confusion. Okay, so usually when we be, okay, I'm sorry, it got lost in the translation there. So yes, Hartanto, yes, you're right. What I mean is things that are similar to empathy. As I said, I'm not a native English speaker. I can't. English is hard. So yes, when you're talking about empathy, we're talking about two other things, which is sympathy and compassion. Like the one where you, I think if you Google empathy, you usually they usually get compared in empathy, sympathy, compassion. Like what are they? What are the difference? Why are we talking about empathy right now? That's so. Sympathy is the feeling of concern, sorrow, or pity for the hardship of suffering or suffering of others, involving acknowledging someone else's pain or distress and expressing condolences for the situation. Focuses on recognizing and feeling sorry for another person's difficulty. And for compassion, compassion is a strong feeling of sympathy with another person's feeling of sorrow or distress, usually involving a desire to help or comfort that person. Do you guys notice the difference between the sympathy, compassion, and empathy? And please type in the chat your answer. The difference between just what I said, sympathy, compassion, and empathy. Yes, Sean is exactly right. Sometimes you don't understand someone, but you can feel sorry for them. That's sympathy. That's absolutely right. Mark, can you tell me more about why, what's the meaning of the different level? Let's go back to empathy, so you guys can see what the empathy part is. So empathy is maybe compassion is higher than sympathy. Okay. Oh, so empathy, sympathy, and then compassion. Is that what you mean, Mark? Oh, okay. Yeah, I see. I see. That's not necessarily wrong, but it's great. It's good. It's actually a good answer. That's what I thought before I started this presentation. Someone who some people are incapable of empathy, whereas sympathy can be learned. Not exactly true. So the main differences between these two, the three of these, is that empathy. Okay, next some sympathy is like being with them in hardship and struggles. On the other hand, compassion is on the higher level of sympathy. Lastly, empathy is putting your point of view in their situation. Yes, almost correct. Nixon is that's actually the closest thing, but for sympathy, it's a little different. So empathy is the main point of empathy is understanding. It does not entail motivation to be of assistance. For sympathy, you just need to acknowledge their suffering and express condolences. It focuses on recognizing their feelings and feeling sorry for them. And compassion is a strong feeling of that sympathy, of acknowledging, of expressing, and It involves a desire to help and comfort. The main difference between empathy and sympathy is the understanding part. So when you have empathy, you understand, you try to understand what they're going through, what they're what they're feeling, what they thought. But for sympathy, you acknowledge that they're in hardship. When you're in hardship, oh, okay. So for example, someone is sad. With sympathy, you know that this someone is sad, like your friend, for example. Your friend is sad, and you feel sorry for them. That's sympathy. But for empathy, you try to understand why they're sad. Uh, does does this sadness affect them in any way, shape, or form? That's empathy. And for compassion is extending your hand to help, trying to comfort them, the desire to help them or comfort them. That's compassion. That's the differences between the three of these. So why empathy? Why out of out of these three, like empathy, sympathy, and compassion? Why is empathy important? Why is empathy considered uh, to be good? Like as Mark said, there's they what is it? Let's see. But it's on different level. Why is it? Why is empathy and sympathy and compassion are? Why do I focus on empathy today? So why is empathy? Empathy is, as I said, it's about understanding and putting yourself in our shoes. It plays an important role in our lives, from building relationships, support, comfort, personal growth, and even to improve happiness and well-being. They improve communication. Like when you try to understand another person, it improves. It helps you to improve communication. It helps the relationship conflict. It helps you resolve conflict. It empowers other. It reduces prejudice. It gives them support and comfort. It increases your emotional intelligence. It promotes pro-social behaviors for everyone involved, and it makes you a more it gives you more positive emotional well-being. So what is the use of empathy? As I said, why is empathy is the one that I want to talk about today? Why not sympathy? Why not compassion? The reason about this is the understanding part. So when you're being empathic with someone, empathy enhances communication by promoting active listening and understanding. So you try to understand the other person better, and you understand their perspective and their thoughts, feeling, and this reduces misunderstanding and potential conflict. And if this conflict does occur, you can use your understanding on their perspective to find a common ground to seek a better help. It makes us understand the other person better. And this, in turn, gives us information about the other person and let us think of more ways to deal or interact with them. So, for example, your friend is sad for a reason and you wanted to interact with them. What do? You can try to empathize with their situation. Think about what part of this reason that makes them sad. Why does that make them sad? And how much does this affect them? And by trying to think about all this stuff, uh, you will gain more information about the whole situation, and it'll maybe give you a better insight on how you can give a more appropriate response to the other person, or it may even give you two or three or more insights. Then what about in judging? What's what about in judging? Does being empathic really helps us in judging? It's the same concept, really. So you want to You want to interact with someone, you empathize with their situation, you get information, and then you oh, I'm sorry. It gives you the better if it makes you think of a better response. So let's talk about Brighton's case. Let's use Brighton's case as an example for this. So when Brighton was called to the judge table, and the player said, "Hey, you heard this, right?" And they're really hard adamant about it, about the whole situation. You can empathize with them. You can empathize with the player, like think why are they doing it? Why are they like this? Why is how important is this to them? And this is like a big event, so it has to be important to them, and they're probably and the more you think about the other part, the one the more the more you empathize with the other party, the more information you can gather from them, and this in turn um will give you a more appropriate response to whatever is whatever is happening. Why are they like this? And it will help you to choose which words it's best to use. Like in this particular example, the player was agitated, so the response you give might give up a more soothing feeling that might help, and all those small information, it will help you as a judge, and it's really great. Yes, exactly, Khan. Feeling when you try to understand this empathy and why and what is happening, is actually helps with the fix on the matter. Oh my god, English is hard. So understanding the situation better means you can regulate your emotion, and also understanding the situation better means that you can regulate your emotion better, which in turn makes you calmer when you approach things. This is a very handy skill as a judge to have, since some of our interactions are kind of tense. Let me give you another example. I think several months ago I was judging, and I got called to a table. Then the table, the both of these person, one of them asked, AP asked me, how does one of the interaction works? So as I explained to them from the start, like, okay, so this is what you have, this is what's happening right now, but the opponent is probably agitated or something, but he rushed me into just say yes or no. He just he rushed me into giving up just the answer and then to leave. At that time, I was really frustrated with him because why are you doing this? I'm just trying to do my job and everything. So I gave the yes or no, and then I just left. But the but when I think about that experience one more time, like afterwards, I after the event, I try to think about that particular event. Uh, I see something that I couldn't see before. Like this person is on the fifth round of a huge tournament where you only get the top eight cut and everyone else doesn't get anything. So he was obviously very tense, and the time was running out. There's only 6 minutes into time, And when when the opponent asks for that, it obviously going to agitate them even more. So I could have done a lot of things differently. I could respond a lot better. I could be a more accommodating to both of those players, and I don't have to feel bad about myself. Because I just said the yes or no, and it's they really left. I don't have to do that. I can be better at the time, but I didn't because I didn't empathize with their situation. So I just got angry and left. I answered the question and then left. So yes, that's the part that I feel that angle shooter might even try to pressure people, even judges, to deliver a ruling so we may go in their favor. Yes, but I thought about that, but I don't think that's what's happening. But that's actually a good insight. Sometimes they do that. So that's the use of empathy in judging, or at least that's what I think of what I feel and what I felt. The use of empathy in judging. If you can think of any other way, it's great. It's good for you. But this is just my own experience and what I've learned so far. So let's go to who is empathy. Who is the target for empathy? The target for empathy is, of course, players. Players are the person we cater in these tournaments. The person we interact more. And then there's tournament organizers. Of course, we interact with them. They're the one that, but they're the one that hires us. So we, of course, have to give them our best. There's also other judges. There's also other judges, and for this one, I think it's mentioned in Brighton's presentation just now about being about giving feedback to fellow judges. Uh, I think that one is about when they deliver the wrong ruling. You don't make them feel bad about it. Just tell them what to do, what happened, and that's a great, perfect example of empathy. You don't want them to feel bad. You empathize with them. If I make them feel bad, would it help them? No, it won't. So what can I do to make it right? That's a great example. And also the spectators. Spectators are also someone that we can empathize with. They're they're around. They're sometimes around, especially when you're having a tournament in a mall or a place there's not an LGS or even in LGS actually. Sometimes there are spectators, and we can be we can be disturbed. We can disturb them in some way, and by empathizing with them, they might be we can minimize that, and they might actually be interested in us. Okay, there's but this is these are not the only targets for empathy. Players, tournament organizers, other judges, spectators are not the only targets for empathy. Who do you think is the other target for empathy? I'm going to react to Sean first. Yourself is correct. Wait, there we go. Yes, yourself is actually correct. You are the other target for empathy, and probably is very important as to grow as a person. Yes, there's a subcategory in empathy. It's called self empathy. But what is self empathy? Self empathy is the practice of extending the same understanding and kindness to yourself that we would to that we would offer to others. Like what we do to that, what we do to them is what we do to us. So we recognize our feelings, we validate them, we acknowledge our own emotions, experience, and struggles without self judgment. This is very important. No self judgment. And these are this what makes self empathy great. So it increases your emotional regulation. It regulates your emotion. It makes you understand your triggers better. The more you understand yourself, oh, I'm weak to that. Oh, I'm weak to this. So therefore, I know my triggers. I can avoid that. Yes, exactly, Sean. Loving yourself. The more you love yourself, the more you understand yourself, the more you can. I'm missing the more you understand your triggers, the more you can avoid them, the more you can work on that, and you can know your limit. Knowing your limit is important. Like the more you think about yourself, think to yourself, oh, what could I do differently? What am I feeling right now? Am I feeling uh, tired? It will help you to know where your limit is, both mentally and physically. And so I got the story for this one. It's from another judge. I think he was in another country. He was judging in a big event, like it's 3 days. And from day one, he go all out. He goes here, he goes there. He barely takes a break. And in day two, he just collapsed. He just he just collapsed like right there. So when he taught me this, he would tell me the story. He emphasizes the importance of knowing your limit, and I think this is very important for all of us to know our limit. Uh, when you know that's your limit, say say no. Say okay. I need to rest myself. Be empathize with yourself. Be kind to yourself, and also reduce self criticism because when you know your limit, you can't criticize yourself. You can't really criticize yourself when you know your limit. This is my limit. If I can't go higher than this. The more you know that, it's the more you know about yourself, about the situation around you. It's really hard to do self criticism because self criticism usually involves not knowing yourself. And when you criticize yourself, it's actually for something that you currently can't do. That's usually what happens with self criticism. So yes, it will be reduced. It increase your own resilience to things that are happening in your life. It improves your mental health. There's a lot more things that can be achieved through self-empathy, not just in judging, but in also in your life as a whole. We so when is empathy? Uh, when is empathy appropriate? This is a very interesting question, actually. So when and actually where empathy is appropriate? When and where empathy is appropriate is when they're appropriate. When empathy is appropriate is when you feel that you need to be empathic. That's when empathy is appropriate. It's actually appropriate every time, in almost every situation. The more you're empathic, the more you can have more about the situation, the more information you can get, and that will lead to more ways to deal with them. The more insight you can get. Empathy is simply caring enough about you and your team. Yes, quick checkups and check-ins to do with them. Reminders to take a break, eat, hydrate. That's right, Romel. That's the one from the who, especially for you yourself and your team. You need to know when to take a break, when to eat, when to hydrate. That's right. But for when is empathy? Oh my god, I got distracted. When is empathy? When is empathy is yeah. As I said, when whenever you think that empathy is right, that's the correct time. Empathy is understanding. And sometimes you need to show sympathy, sometimes you need to show compassion, but empathy is every time, everywhere, every when. But empathy can be tiring. That's the that's the hard part. So when you empathize, just uh, so just I will tell you I will tell you more about this and how is empathy. But in when is empathy, you just um, English is hard. I'm sorry. uh, you just be empathic every time, every minute, every day of your life. The the more you can be empathic about it, the more it's gonna be better. The more information you can get, the more you can bond with people, the more you can bond with people, and whatever it is, it's fine. Sometimes you need to show sympathy when people wants to be heard. You show sympathy when people want to be helped. Show compassion, but empathy is where it starts. Starts with empathy, you go everywhere. And I so how is empathy? How do you do empathy? How like what's the step by step to do empathy for or how to be more empathic, how to practice empathy? The answer is actually quite simple. Just practice. Just practice being empathic. Just practice being kind. Just practice being good. Just try to always think about the other person. There are some tips on how to be better in empathy. You just practice this, and you can be better and better. So there are active listening. When someone is speaking, give them your full attention. Put aside distraction. Genuinely listen to what they're saying without interrupting. You and be non-judgmental. Approach the conversation without judgment. Try to understand their perspective before evaluating or criticizing it. You validate their emotion. You practice perspective talking. You put yourself in other person's shoes. Imagine how you would feel in their situation. Consider their background, experience. That might shape a different viewpoints from yours. Be present. Be fully present in the moment when you're engaging with someone. Put away a distraction. Give them your undivided attention. That's one of the great ways to be empathic. Uh, Avoid comparison. Avoid comparing this person's experience to your own, to others. Their 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 situations are unique. Comparison can minimize their feeling. You're not validating their feelings and their experiences enough, and that's probably makes it a little bit hard for you to empathize with them. Learn more about different perspectives, educate yourself about different cultures, backgrounds, experience. This can help you to understand and empathize with broader range of viewpoints. Reflect on your own feelings. Take time to reflect on your own feelings and experience the self self empathy part. This self awareness can make you more attuned to the emotion of others. When you do self empathy. It's it's gonna help you. It's gonna help others. And gonna help you to understand others' feelings too. And lastly, but more importantly, practice empathy daily. Make empathy a daily practice. Engage with others with the intention of understanding and connecting with their emotion. The important part here is engage others with the intention of understanding. You don't engage others just because, hey bro, what's up? You do it because you want to understand them. You you make yourself want to understand you and connect with them emotionally. That's what's make you be better at empathy. Remember that empathy is a skill that grows with practice and mindfulness. So over time, your ability to connect with others on a deeper emotional level will improve. This will lead to more meaningful relationship and better communication. Not only just as a judge, but as also as a person. But as I said before in the when part, empathy is very tiresome. So there is an experiment in America where a person is given two photographs. For one photograph, they just need to describe what they see, and for the other part, it's they need to describe it empathically. They need to they need to say what they feel about the picture, about everything that's happening inside, what the other person in the picture might feel. And a lot of people in that experiment chose the part where they just need to describe what they see. And when asked why they choose that, they said it's because empathy is it's tiring to be emotional about something. It's easier to just see and then react to it. But the interesting part is that when someone is told, when someone talks about the empathic picture, like they need to be empathic about it. They describe their what this person in the photo is feeling. When they do that, they have the tendency to do that one again and more. And the more they're praised about it, the more they acknowledge the feelings. They actually choose the more and more people actually choose this part, uh, describing the describing empathically rather than just describing the picture. They describe the feeling in the picture. Yeah, so I think it got lost in the translation there. But yeah, basically, but by practicing, empathy becomes so much easier and more rewarding. Gives you it gives you the fulfillment to be a better person. It gives other the warmth that they need. It gives them what they need to be more empathic too. It creates a more positive environment since when you're being empathic, you also influence them to be empathic as well. And in our world, in judging world, I think that's something where we can strive, that we can make MTG a better environment for everyone involved and for people who want to join the MTG community. And as Barack Obama said, learning to stand in somebody else's shoes, that's how peace begins. And it's up to you to make that happen. Empathy is the quality of characters that can change the world. That's what Barack Obama said. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do you guys, was it Barack? Do you guys have any questions or uh, stories that you want to share?
All
Please
right.
tell us. You can say it in a comment, or you can ask Ralph to unmute you.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan, for the presentation. Everyone, if you guys have any questions for Ryan or any thoughts about his presentation, please feel free to mic up or comment in our chat box, and we'll read it for you. Just a reminder, if you're not yet done filling out the attendance form, at least for Ryan's presentation, go ahead and click the link in the chat box. And also, if it's your first time to